Hey, Ravings and Cravings here, otherwise known as Ruth Hartunian Allenbaugh, with the show brought to you by the Wyndham Economic and Community Development folks and food people and businesses from all over our listening area, including WILI. Today, I have waited for this moment for so long. Today I'm here with none other than our favorite radio morning show host, Wayne Norman. Round of applause. If I had, a recording, I could do that. But welcome to this radio show where I get to ask the questions and you get to tell me everything. Wayne, thank you.
They have no idea how hard you worked to get me on.
I did.
And how much I balked at this because Rachel Ray, I'm not. I don't, to me, the only thing you go in the kitchen for is go in the fridge to take something out and then you leave. I don't do a lot of cooking. I'm on the road a lot. Mm-hmm. So some of your normal questions aren't going to work with me.
Well, you know what? I love not normal. So, and that's why you're here, right? Right? Because you're not normal. You're just
was that why I'm here?
Out of the box. Okay. Well, everyone loves you, Wayne. You've been on air with people for 53 years. Just to give us some of the accolades that, talk about yourself, brag a little bit. Talk about some of the things that you've received as a result of your being on the radio all these
I think
years.
The one that really blew me away was 2018. I was inducted into the Connecticut Broadcasters Association Hall of Fame. And, 50, at that point, pushing 50 years in radio, I guess it shouldn't be a surprise, except for one thing, Ruth.
Yeah.
And that is that only 16 people are in that.
Oh.
It isn't like everybody that works a long time gets in that thing.
Oh, wow.
So that meant a lot to me to be inducted into that. And I'm not even aware if they've had another ceremony since that time. I mean, there was COVID might have taken a few of them away, but it really wasn't that widely publicized. But I'm pretty proud of that. In 2019, I was named the Connecticut Sportscaster of the Year.
Wow.
Back in the days of Jody Rell being the lieutenant governor, she called me a Connecticut treasure.
I remember that.
There's all kinds of little nickel and dime things. And some of that comes with tenure, but, I'm not giving up on them. I like them. So, there's a few others, but I think those are some of the biggest ones.
Well, and, we're fortunate to have you here, and I thought an interesting angle for today's show would be, what do people like you eat when you travel, where you go places? You grew up in California, and you're definitely not living in California anymore. So, what are some of the things that, say, you grew up eating? Was there something that your mom made that you really loved?
Mom and my grandmother, her mother, were tremendous cooks. Each of them had their specialties. The one thing that Mom made, and this might have been just out of a box, but the point is she made it, and she knew that I liked it, was tapioca. I love tapioca.
Really?
Yeah, just out of the blue. How's that one?
Wow, that I was not expecting that one.
And then my grandmother made this homemade applesauce, and there was actually slices of apples in it. It's kind of like what you might see in some kind of a dessert thing, like an apple pie, for example. And she'd whip it up there on the stove, and it'd be on a pot, and it would be served as applesauce. It isn't the fine stuff you get in a jar at the supermarket. This actually had the apple slices in it.
Oh, wow.
And Mom would try to do that. And 10-year-old Wayno would basically say, Grandma's is better. So what we called it Grandma's experienced applesauce.
Oh, experienced.
And then as far as things in California, I don't remember too much as far as going out. I don't think we went out that much back then. But when I lived in Glendale, which is about 6 years before I came to Connecticut, we went to Bob's Big Boy a lot. Because Bob Wyan, W-I-A-N, he's the Bob of Bob's Big Boy, that little man there holding his hamburger up and that kind of stuff. He was from Glendale, or somewhere around there. And there were a couple of Bob's Big Boy restaurants, including one right by Glendale High School. So, yeah, we could spend some time there.
We had Bob's Big Boy in Wisconsin, where I grew up. And what was your favorite thing on that menu? Did you have a couple? I have a couple of favorites. I liked the double cheeseburger. And I liked their strawberry pie. I was like, Mom, can we go there, please? Those are my two favorites.
Well, I remember the milkshakes.
Oh, they had great milkshakes.
The milkshakes were great.
Isn't there a Bob statue thing over by the Bachdoor Cafe?
Yeah, I've got a picture of it on my phone here, actually.
Isn't that
It used to be down by the Bridge Street Plaza.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'd be on the Willimantic River Trail and walk right by it, and I go, hey, that was actually what I thought about doing was maybe walking with that at the beginning of the Boombox Parade.
Oh, that would have
But
been
number one, it was really big and really heavy, and to be honest, number two, it was pretty beaten up.
Yeah.
It would need some work, and it could have been fixed up, but I decided it's too much hassle. I wouldn't do it. But yeah, when I saw that for the first time, I thought of Glendale, California. I thought of Bob's Big Boy. I think around here was it Abdow's? There was an Abdow's chain that had the same guy. I think they were based in Springfield or Longmeadow or somewhere north of here. But I've seen them back east. They just don't call it Bob's Big Boy.
Right, it's Abdow's.
And I don't even know if it's as big a deal out there now as it was back then. But that was the place to go.
Did you grew up near Santa Barbara, right? Santa Barbara? Didn't you grow up near Santa Barbara, California?
No.
No. Because I'm thinking Burkholm's
No, I
Bakery.
grew up in Hollywood.
Solvang?
I grew up like a mile from Hollywood and Vine.
Oh, all right, okay. All right.
And I went to Vine Street School. And across the street from Vine Street School, which is, again, a mile down the road from Hollywood and Vine, was Desilu Studios. So I am there learning reading, writing, and arithmetic, while across the street they're shooting I Love Lucy.
That's amazing.
Way cool.
That is cool.
And then when I got out of elementary school, Vine Street School, we moved to Glendale. I was in Cub Scouts. My mom was my den mother in Cub Scouts, so the natural progression at that age is to go to Boy Scouts. We went to new town. Mom figured, put him in Boy Scouts. He can meet new friends here and that stuff. It worked out great for me. It worked out for her because she married my Scoutmaster. And my Scoutmaster worked for Westinghouse. He got promoted to Bridgeport, Connecticut. Yeah, L.A. to Bridgeport was a promotion.
Wow.
He worked in circuit breakers and wiring devices back there. And they gave me the option to stay in California or come with them. If I'd stayed, I would have stayed with my grandparents in Hollywood, the house I grew up in. And I figured, I'm up for it. They lasted 9 years here, mainly because Mom didn't like wintertime. She liked 9 months of the year in Connecticut. But those 3 months with snow and ice, she didn't like that at all.
Yeah.
That's when the Santa Barbara thing entered the equation. They had some ties there, but they built a house in Santa Barbara, and they lived there until both of them passed away. My mom died about 10 years ago. And Santa Barbara is an incredible community.
Well, my husband grew up there.
Yeah, so you know all about it.
We know.
I think one thing that makes it really great, it's on the ritzy side, I'll admit that.
Yeah.
But their downtown Main Street, it's called State Street, is spectacular. And the way I hear the story, they had a big earthquake there in 1925. And everything, except the mission, the Santa Barbara mission somehow survived. Maybe it's just well built. But pretty much everything came down. And they had to rebuild that town with like a 20th century mentality. It was a wide street, State Street. There's a lot of nice stores up and down it, and it's just a good looking town. And I think the earthquake and the rebuilding from the earthquake is why it looks so good.
I bet there's some good places to eat downtown too.
I have eaten in many places downtown. Don't ask me the name of them because I haven't been to Santa Barbara in
Well, how about
5 years.
We'll switch gears to downtown around here. Do you have some favorite places that you've gone that you like to eat?
Yeah. Option B, all of the above.
All of the
I
above.
love the Main Street Cafe. I like the Colchester Cobb salad. Which is, of course, has the zip code of whatever Colchester is.
Right.
I love Stone Row, and I especially like it when they've got the jazz shows on like Wednesday night down there on the patio. And Fenton River Grill. And one thing, Ruth, when it comes to the pandemic,
Yes.
is that I tried to be as careful as I could, maybe more careful than other people were, and I was really intent, call it paranoid, to find outside dining, which of course kind of goes away in the wintertime. I get that. And so I would look to places where I could do dining outside.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Okay, so there's a reason for that, but what it showed me was how much I like outside dining. Forget the pandemic.
Oh.
And now, pandemic or no pandemic, I want to do outside dining. I'm happy that now the weather's warming up and now there's some more options that weren't there 2 months ago. And I'm back at it again, looking for the outside dining. Fenton River Grill has a really nice outside dining spot.
They do, yeah.
And for breakfast, you got Blondie's has a little outside dining area there.
They do, yeah.
I love diner breakfasts.
Have you gone to the Brooklyn Country Diner for breakfast there?
I have not. Tell me where to go.
Brooklyn, Connecticut. Just Google
I
it.
know what it is.
Yeah. They have really great food, and they have really good like home style stuff. Meatloaf and all that kind of thing. And they have a golf shooting driving range right next to it, so you can watch people doing that. I like that place. I think it's awesome.
Well, one thing about the diner breakfast and the ones around here are good.
Not that I don't
examples.
like anything here. I should add that though. I have lots of favorites here.
Well, the diner breakfasts also give you gigantic
Yeah,
portions.
yeah, yeah.
Huge omelets, big. Blondie's has these, frisbee-sized pancakes and
Yeah,
stuff. And while
yeah.
I'm not really big on sticking a pancake in a doggy bag and reheating it tomorrow, although I have been known to do that,
Yeah.
it works pretty well with omelets.
Oh, it does, yeah.
That breakfast place, another place that they don't have much outside dining there, but they make great breakfast too.
Yeah.
And so what I'll do is I'll have a half or maybe a third of the omelet, but I got breakfast for 3
Yeah.
days.
I got a random question. How do you like your eggs in your omelet? Like,
Runny.
do you like? I do
a
too.
a little runny.
That's right, because then when you reheat it,
Well, that too, yeah.
it
But I mean,
doesn't
even the
overcook.
first time. And as far as frying them up, over easy. I'm an over easy kind of guy.
over easy, so you like it a little bit runny. I'm poached. I like still the runny kind
And
of
then
thing.
you were asking about on the road.
Yeah.
It's again, it's a multiple choice answer on the road. Sometimes it depends on where we are, and we fly with the teams. I'm talking football and basketball on the team charter. Well, they feed you on those charters. Sometimes it's just finger food and cheese strips and chips and popcorn and things like that. But sometimes you actually get like a Gansett wrap. I asked for a Caesar salad wrap. And to be honest, when you've had the other stuff and the Caesar salad wrap, and you get to the location, I'm not really looking to go out for dinner. So sometimes, I'll just take a bag of chips and munch on them at 8 o'clock at night, and I'm good for dinner for that night. And then usually my partner, Mike Crispino, he gets on the breakfast watch. And he asks at the desk or looks online. I think it's mostly talking to people about it. And he finds places to go. And sometimes we've walked as much as a mile to get to
Just to go and eat somewhere.
a restaurant for breakfast.
Oh.
Sometimes they're diners. Sometimes they're sit-down restaurants and stuff. And you get some different kind of looks. I remember some good ones we've been in places like Houston and Dallas. Omaha had one. And speaking of Omaha, again, we don't go out a lot the day that we flew for the reasons I just said. But heart healthy or not, and this is the latter, this is the not part.
It's the not.
We went to
okay.
Omaha to play Creighton back in early February. Well, Omaha is famous for
Steaks.
steaks.
Yeah.
So we went to this upscale steakhouse, and we don't generally do that kind of stuff.
Ooh.
And I got myself a 24-ounce prime, which when
yeah.
it came out, it looked like a 48-ounce prime. It was huge,
Oh, yum.
and it was not cheap.
Really?
This is an upscale place.
Ah, okay.
And then the other guys, my engineer Chris and Mike, they ordered some side dishes, the cream spinach and stuff like that. Well, the money I paid for that prime, I think it was 60 or something like that.
Actually, that's not
I
bad.
said, there's no fridge in the hotel room.
Oh, right.
You either eat it or you leave it.
Right.
And that kind of money and that kind of quality meat, I got about 18 ounces through with it.
Okay.
The last 6 ounces, they were a struggle. But damn it, I finished it. And it was really,
You're a
really
trooper.
good. And I'm a medium guy, by the way. I'm not a medium rare. I'm not a well done. I'm a medium guy.
I was
I'm
going to
happy
ask
with
you,
that.
yeah.
And if you're going to ask about, if I had one dying meal, it'd be steak and potatoes.
That would be
But
it.
you're going to ask about when
Yeah.
I got a stent in 2015. Things changed at that point in time.
Right. So how did things change for you? What do you do? What do you do differently now?
Well, portion control, less red meat, significantly less red meat. We'll go to things like chicken and things like that. And one thing that I've really gotten into since then, and maybe even more lately, just fresh fruit. And that could be apples, that could be oranges, that could be mandarin oranges, that could be bananas, it could be pears, depending on what's out there. And I'll usually go through 1 or 2 of those every day. I've already had a couple this morning. And I realize an apple a day keeps the doctor away, but it's also good eating.
It is. Well, when you're hungry, I mean, I know you just said you enjoy fruit.
I'm hungry now. What do you got?
Oh my gosh.
I see bananas in there.
Besides fruit, I have homemade green pepper soup, and I have sarma, which is the Armenian version of the stuffed grape leaves that have, believe it or not, it has a combination of ground lamb and ground beef in it with cracked wheat and some other spices. It is awesome. I will be happy to let you try that later on. Yeah.
I'm in. Say when.
Yeah, so we're international in our refrigerator. And then I also have had some bone broth left, and I had cauliflower that was dying. So I cooked the cauliflower in the bone broth, and then I got out my immersion blender and just whizzed it. So it's like a creamy kind of a bone broth soup. It's very good. I have more. I have other stuff than that too. So,
Well, I travel a lot. And I remember when I was in France in 1999, sitting in the shadow of the Eiffel Tower, I had escargot.
Oh, I love escargot.
For the first time.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
How did they season it? What did they do?
It was 20 years ago. I don't know.
Butter, garlic.
Let's just say I finished my plate. Yeah.
That's so good.
It was more of an appetizer kind of thing. And by the way, you want to tell people what escargot is if they don't know?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, so it's snail.
Yeah.
Interesting fact, when I was in Hong Kong at a Pizza Hut, they had
Pizza Hut in Hong Kong.
They had on their menu escargot and mashed potatoes and pizza. Guess what I bought? Guess what I got? Of course, I got that escargot. I had to try that. I'm like, I'm at Pizza Hut in Hong Kong. How does that happen?
I was in Russia. I was in town of Tver, Tver. It's about 2 hours north of Moscow. And I had borscht for the first time. And there was no second time.
Oh, okay.
It was all right. I don't want to say it was horrible.
Yeah.
But maybe they have a taste for it. I didn't think it was that great.
I think Nita's used to have that on her menu, I think, didn't she?
Really?
I think she did. Yeah. With other Polish kind of
And then I remember when I was in Africa, my friend Bob Porter, he was in charge of banks down there. He worked for the International Monetary Fund or the World Bank, and his job, he went all over the planet. His job was to bring these third world countries up to Western banking standards. In Botswana, they had just found 3 diamond mines there. So they've got actual liquid capital in exchange for the diamonds. Some of those other southern African countries didn't have that, so their infrastructure is different. But because Botswana had real money, their currency is called the Pula, P-U-L-A, which is rain in Botswana language, because rain is so valuable down there because of the farms and things like that. So at any rate, we went to a restaurant down there, and that was the first time I had calamari.
Oh,
in Botswana, Africa.
What? That doesn't make sense.
There's some food travel stories for you.
And of course, do you think people know what calamari is?
I know, it's squid, right?
Squid, yeah.
Well, and supposedly, when UConn men's basketball was in the Final Four, one of their best players, Jordan Hawkins, he got sick, and they weren't sure if he could play. He got some serious medical attention, and ended up playing, and he ended up playing pretty well, but up till game time, you weren't sure what he was going to do. He claims it was bad calamari. Now, why I don't buy that is because other people were at the same meal and they didn't get sick. I think he got some stomach bug or something like
else,
that.
Yeah.
But it became an in-joke about calamari. In fact, at the parade, who was it? The mayor of Hartford, Luke Bronin, he was up there before all the people of the parade, before the team and that stuff, and he talked about, how important the championship is, and he says, here in Hartford where we have great calamari. He used that as a plug for Hartford calamari. I thought that was pretty funny.
That's a good segue, huh?
Yeah. So, and then I remember on my 50th birthday in Moscow, they took me out to a 200-year-old Ukrainian restaurant.
Ooh.
And actually, it was circular, and in the center, all glassed off and walled off and stuff, they actually had farm animals there. You could be eating your dinner by looking at farm animals through a glass right next to you.
That's cool.
And now you're going to ask me what I had, and I don't remember.
Oh,
but it was a pretty nice night, though.
That's awesome.
And then went off to the Moscow Circus.
Oh, that must have been interesting.
Which is pretty famous.
Yeah.
But to be honest, the Ringling Brothers, or even the Cole Brothers, I thought did a better show than they did at the Moscow Circus.
Oh, really?
But they don't know any different. They're used to seeing their Moscow Circus, and it was good.
It was their best.
Yeah.
It was their best.
Yeah, I would have gone to the Bolshoi, but it was closed when I was there, so I couldn't go to the ballet.
Well, you've eaten around the world here, I think, haven't you?
But I did see ballet at the Hermitage Theater in St. Petersburg.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
It was like a greatest hits thing of ballet, and only one I remember, they did some of Swan Lake.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the music I recognized.
Beautiful.
So
How about some of your backpacking or camping adventures? What are you eating when you're...
yeah, well,
Tell us about
that's
that.
a story. 2002, Charlie Bender from Lebanon, his brother Jimmy, and his friends John and Don Drum from Lebanon. Charlie convinced me to hike the Grand Canyon. And what an experience that was. Now, their experience, they go every year. They still go every year, even at their advanced age.
Wow, that's amazing.
And they knew the whole drill and how you handle with the food and things like that.
Right,
So what you pack in, you have to pack out. So breakfast would generally be those instant oatmeal containers, because you have to filter your water, and then you create a little fire there, and you boil the water, and you got your instant oatmeal. You can make instant coffee, and then you go do your walk, usually 5, 6, 7 miles a day. And for lunch, we bring along pita pockets and cans of tuna, and you'd make a tuna sandwich out of the pita pocket.
Okay.
And then when you're done, you just take a rock and you smash the can down, because it's empty, put it back in your pack, because you got to carry that the rest of the way. Only now there's no tuna in it.
Good strategy.
And then they had an actual pot for dinner, and they made a couple of different things on each individual night. And then they have on the last night, they create what they call barnyard stew. Barnyard stew is take whatever we got left and throw it in the pot and stir it up and eat it.
I bet
And
it's
that was
good.
it.
I bet
5
it's
days. I probably did 25 miles down there. Charlie and Jimmy probably did 50 miles, and John and Don probably did about 35 or so, because I started getting a little sore that first day. That first day, you're going down really steep, and your thighs and calves aren't ready for that, despite conditioning you've done. You can't condition for that in Connecticut, because we don't have steepness like that. So I didn't really want to do too much extra walking, and it turned out, barely made it out okay, and lived to tell the story, and it was a phenomenal experience, and the food was great.
Sounds.
It all comes full circle.
Yeah, everything. It always comes back to food, because we all have to eat. Everybody's got to eat. Well, I think that I've asked all the important questions, but I want to ask something maybe that's not so important. As far as your heart healthy type of way that you eat, what is different now than what it was like before you discovered that you had some issues that you need to take care of?
It was chest pains, and they got addressed, and they put the stent in, which is a pretty simple procedure. I was awake during the whole thing. I felt the stent. My stent insertion came to my wrist. Many people I've talked to get it to the groin,
They do that.
which I think is much more invasive.
That sounds
But I could have worked, well, maybe not the next morning, but 2 days after. I had a few more days off. Plus, there was a blizzard in there. I can't shovel snow now.
Oh, so
I've been
no
told
lifting.
not to shovel snow.
No lifting kind
Yeah.
of thing.
But I felt the stent going up my arm.
Yikes.
You kind of lose it around the shoulder. I asked the nurse, because I was awake during this thing. They numb all the important spots. But I said, was that the stent? He says, yep. 40 minutes in and out next. It's such a routine procedure.
Oh, my goodness.
And, I see a cardiologist every year, and they do all the usual tests, and they say, things doing its job, you're doing a good job, and so forth.
And what do they tell you to eat? What do you eat now that's anything different than what?
Well,
what it
again,
was before?
less red meat, and I was big into cottage cheese and ice cream and stuff before. I'll still have some of that stuff, but not to the level I did before. It's also caused me to lose some weight. But then, when you're done with the procedure, they put you in cardiac rehab. This would be at Wyndham Hospital, and you go 3 or 4 months until the insurance runs out, and they say, okay, goodbye, keep doing it, huh? So I joined a gym, and then one day, 6 months later, by total accident, with Ray Axelrod from the Railroad Museum, I was doing a Walktober event out in Columbia, Hop River Road, and I discovered the rail trails. And I went from doing 2 miles on the treadmill at the gym to 2 miles on the trail, which I liked it so much. Went to 3 miles, went to 4. One day I did 6.6 miles. That night the body says, don't ever do that again. I was feeling pretty sore that day.
I bet you were hungry
But
after all that, too.
I would do 4 to 5 miles a day, sometimes 7 days a week.
Wow.
And it was my happy place. It is my happy place. The Hop River Trail is incredible. The Airline Trail is incredible. The Willamette River Trail is. And there's other trails around the state. I've been on some of them. But to have such a great, long network of trails around here.
I agree.
And when I saw the cardiologist, who's in there anymore, but Dr. Fisher Keller, he just basically said, you are the poster child for cardiac rehab.
Well, we're glad you're still around, and I appreciate your time this morning coming to talk to me about what you're eating. You have a community who really does love you, and we are grateful that you're around. And you've been around for 53 years, and maybe you'll be around for another
Been
53.
around here 53 years.
Yeah.
A few years more than that before I came to this community.
Yeah.
Which, of course, one reason why is because of the University of Connecticut.
Right.
Because I was at UConn for the best part of 4 years, and then I went to Ansonia, where I worked a couple of years at the radio station there. And Dave Evan, who ran the show here in Willimantic back in 1970, needed a guy in the afternoon, called me. That's why I'm back in this area, and I haven't left since.
Yay. Well, thanks for joining me today on Ravings and Cravings. This is Ruth Hartunian Allenbaugh signing off. I hope you enjoyed today's show.
I did.